Alright, this is Ashley, and this is our audience.
Okay. April is considered National Child Abuse Month, which is the reason why I'm wearing a blue shirt, because that's his color. So I found it fitting that I could do this speech on child abuse this month. Being a social work major and wanting to work in the child welfare system, I've read and been taught about the horrors of what children of all ages go through. These past years, I have been taught about the four main abuses that parents or adults inflict on children. In child welfare, there are four categories of abuse: physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. I just want to point out that these abuses know no distinction between age, race, gender, ethnic group, or economic status, or even the place where it happens. First, I want to talk about physical abuse. Statistically speaking, approximately 772,000 children were found to be victims of child maltreatment in 2008. Of that, 16.1% were physical abuse according to these statistics. Physical abuse is defined by Popple and Piccioli as physical injury ranging from minor bruises to severe fractures or even death. And this might be a result of punching, beating, kicking, biting, shaking, throwing, stabbing, choking, or hitting with a hand over any object, and burning and otherwise harming the child. Such injury is considered abuse regardless of whether the caretaker intended to do it or not. Signs of this abuse is like physical marks like bruises or burns or cuts, or multiple marks on various stages of healing. Then there are several behavioral factors such as acting out in school, flinching when someone's trying to touch them, being withdrawn, or being depressed. But that's just naming a few. There's a lot more. Now I want to talk about sexual abuse. National child abuse statistics reported about 9.1% of the number I gave earlier of maltreated children have been reported being sexually abused. This is defined as sexual abuse as activities by a parent or caregiver such as fondling a child's genitals, penetration, incest, rape, sodomy, indecent exposure, and exploitation through prostitution or the public pornographic materials. Usually sexual abuse just doesn't happen. It's always planned. The perpetrator usually has a set plan of action, and it takes months, sometimes years, for the perpetrator to groom his or her victim to where they are compliant and won't tell anyone. Sometimes the perpetrator was a victim themselves, which drives them to inflict the same pain onto their victim. A sign of sexual abuse is if the victim shows knowledge, whether it be physical or informational, about anything sexual beyond their understanding. An example would be like if a child shoves a crayon up their doll's vagina, which that's anyways a sign of. But oftentimes there are not any behavioral or physical indicators of sexual abuse, and no one should depend on a list of signs to reveal this abuse. Next, I want to talk about emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is usually hard to prove because it's dealing with psychological issues, and only 7.3% cases were reported. It is defined as a pattern of behavior that impairs a child's emotional development and self-worth. This may include constant criticism, threats, or reject, as well as withholding love and support and guidance. Signs of this might be self-mutilation, being withdrawn, depressed, having low self-esteem, or alcohol and drug use. Last, I want to talk about neglect, which neglect is the highest reported abuse there is, at 71.1%. It is defined as a failure to provide the needs of the children. This might involve physical necessities such as food or shelter, and then medical necessities such as mental or medical health treatment, and then educational necessities such as failure to educate a child or attend the special education needs, and emotional necessities such as inattention to a child's emotional needs, failure to provide psychological care, or permitting a child to use alcohol. Signs of the victim is undernourished, being developmentally delayed, being dirty, or hungry. I brought this as a visual aid. It's from the Child Advocacy Center. It's like a little pamphlet that it's for children to show. Like this part tells you who you can tell, such as an adult, parent, teacher, or policeman. And then if you open it up, it gives you like myths such as, I have proof that a child has been abused or neglected. Do I have to report it? It's like, yes, you do. And then in that fact, it's like, if I report child abuse, do I have to be involved in the investigation? And you usually do not. And it shows like this one gives you examples of the abuse in a kid's language, such as, Johnny comes to school today with bruises all over his body, which is considered physical abuse. And then someone tried to touch Mary's private parts and it made her uncomfortable, which is sexual abuse. And then Emma cries every night because her parents yell at her. That's emotional. And then Bobby is always hungry when he comes to school, which is neglect. And then just gives you a bunch of kid activities so they can better understand, like they write, who can I talk to, and it's just, you list names, and then yeah. And that's, despite the research that delves into the causation of child maltreatment, the agreement is that the dynamics of child abuse and neglect are too complex to be explained by one single theory. In child welfare, the main 4 abuses are categorized as physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. Child welfare isn't an easy field to go to. I will be faced with challenges every day in grotesque situations that children are unfortunately involved in. But nevertheless, this is something I'm truly passionate about because I want to help children when no one else can. I hope you guys learned something about these abuses and know that if you know someone who is doing this, report it, no matter if they're family or not. Because too often enough, the child will pay in ultimate consequences. Thank you.